Hi, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Delaware County Sustainability Commission. Thank you all for being here. So I'll share my screen so we can get started with the agenda. So the first item on the agenda is a roll call, and then we'll have an interactive question. So I'm just going to stop sharing my screen now so I can go over roll call. So when I say your name, please say here or present. And as I'm doing this, I'm not looking at the Zoom screen, so please verbally say here or present. Scott Sidlow.
Here.
Jenny Sachs.
Here.
David Director.
I'm here.
I believe Sean Stansel is not here. Oh, and this has to change. Well, Becca Yurkovich, I know that you're not. Okay, thank you. We have to change the sign-in. Cephas. Okay. Crystal Gauld.
Here.
Thank you. Francine.
Here.
Ed Orner. And I think you said is Mark Manfrey not attending?
Correct.
Okay. Thomas Schaefer.
He's not either. He's on vacation.
Jim Warner. Ed McGargy.
Here.
Laura Goodrich, Cairns.
Here.
Okay. All right. Okay, great. All right, so we do have quorum, so that's good. Okay.
Hey, Carol, I jumped on late. This is Jacqueline.
Oh, hi. Okay. Let me put you on the spreadsheet here. Jacqueline Rhodes. Okay. Oh, Steve Clark.
I'm here.
Okay. All right. That takes care of everything. So we do have quorum, so that's good. All right. The next item on the agenda is to do the interactive question. So I'll bring that up now. Okay. So the question is, hold on a minute. You are planning a summer party, and how do you make it sustainable, eco-friendly, and with the lowest possible carbon footprint? So you go to www.menti.com, MENTI.com, and the code is 70647445. And the question is, okay, you're planning a summer party. How do you make it sustainable, eco-friendly, and with the lowest possible carbon footprint? You probably want it to be like zero waste as well. So I thought maybe we would just share some ways that bring Tupperware, excellent. So people aren't using like plates, disposable plates. Share leftovers. You don't want anything to be thrown out, obviously. Reusable silverware and plates. Yep. Bring your own utensils. You bring your utensils to eat and then take them back with you. Serve food from your garden. That's great because if you're buying stuff from the store, it comes in all kinds of like packaging, maybe plastic packaging. Use veggies from the garden. Great idea. It's always good to have it be plant-based, obviously. And if you have it from your garden, there's no like plastic containers or anything. Use proper dishes and silverware. Don't use disposable plates. Yep. Invite fewer people. Yeah, that's a thought too. Maybe have it be more intimate, not have a lot of people. Use decor from nature. You don't want to spend you don't want to spend money on like buying decor that you just throw away afterward. And you have decor from nature, and then they're not manufactured either. So that reduces your carbon footprint. Compost your trash. I mean, anything you can compost afterwards, do that. Big jugs of water, adult beverages, like instead of having a lot of adult beverages in like individualized cans, have it in like larger containers. No plastic bags. Go for a walkable hike instead of a party. Yeah, it could be a walking party. So yeah, and that way people have the experience. It's like you just bring what you have with you, your boots to use for like hiking, and yeah, that's very eco-friendly. Bring finger food. No kids pool. You don't want to use like a ton of water, like wasting water. No kids pool, no water balloons, or water activities. Oh, this is a good one. Water plants with melted ice, or, maybe you don't even want ice, like you don't even want to even have anything that required that energy to make it into ice to begin with. But when the ice melts, instead of just tossing it on your driveway or something, water the plants with the melted ice. That's a good idea. A meat-free main course. Yeah, the more you can have it meatless, that's better for the environment. And carpool. I mean, how are your guests coming to your party? So, carpool or make sure you have it in a place that's accessible by public transportation. And it didn't necessarily have to be at your home. You could have the summer party, like one of you recommended, a walkable hike, like meet at a park. But you can carpool to get to the park or take public transportation and then pick them up or something like that. So, all right. So I thought that would be a neat question. I don't know if any of you are having any parties this summer, but try to, like in everything you do, obviously we try to make it sustainable because we're all committed to that. And so these are really great suggestions. So thank you for contributing to that. That sounds awesome. So now I'll share my screen again. So I'll bring up the agenda. And here, okay. Let's see. The next item on the agenda is welcoming our Delaware County Office of Sustainability interns. So would you like to introduce yourselves, Scott and Stephen?
Hi, everyone. I'm Stephen DiDonato. I'm going into my junior year at Widener University, and I'm a political science major with a minor in finance. I've been learning a lot so far, so I'm excited to continue learning.
Hello, I'm Scott Doig. I'm a rising sophomore at Overland College. I'm an econ and environmental studies major, and I'm super excited to be here and learn.
Great. Well, welcome, and we're happy to have you too. So,
thank you.
Let's see. We have a message in the chat. Oh yeah, welcome. Next is approval of the meeting minutes. So I believe we did not approve the May meeting minutes yet. So we have to approve May's and June's. So let me pull those up here. So here's May's meeting minutes. Would someone, I assume that you've all read the meeting minutes. So would someone like to make a motion to approve May's meeting minutes?
Ed McGargy, I'll make the motion that we approve the May meeting minutes.
Okay.
Ball will second.
Okay. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, so moved. Our May meeting minutes are approved. So let's go to our June meeting minutes now. Hold on a second. Okay, our June meeting minutes. Would someone like to make a motion to approve our June meeting minutes?
Yeah, I move that we approve the June meeting. It's David, Director.
Okay, thank you, David. Would someone like to second?
Okay.
Oh, Jenny, okay. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, so moved. Our meeting minutes for June are approved. Next on the agenda is the Chief Sustainability Officer update. Francine.
Hi, thank you. I'm going to share my screen with you. Okay. All right, hopefully you can see my screen now.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so I wanted to share with you what's going on inside the Office of Sustainability right now. And we're working on our capital improvement program for 2023. And so as we mentioned before in previous meetings, that the Office of Sustainability oversees 6 departments. One of those departments is Public Works. And so the Public Works Department is responsible for administering the CIP. And the CIP is a short-range schedule of public improvement projects planned by county government to occur over a 5-year period. So this will be the CIP for 2023 to 27. Hopefully I calculated that correctly. The CIP details how the county will sustain and improve its infrastructure and core assets and identifies all sources and uses of funds provided for the protection, improvement, and replacement of capital assets. The definition of a capital asset was actually just changed recently by council. The definition of a capital asset is a purchase greater than $5,000. It used to be $500. So we've changed that, and a life cycle of greater than 1 year. All requests under 5,000 must be included in the operating budget for each department. So this is a big change for our departments. They have to figure out how much they've been spending in the past on purchases that are $500 to $5,000, because previously that was in the capital budget. And so the CIP is presented to County Council for adoption. It's managed once again by Public Works. And you can see the 2022 CIP from checking out this link right here. If you can't interact with it, you can just go to the Delaware County website and click on the budget department, and you'll be able to see that. Moving along. And so just wanted you to know that there is a steering committee that is working on the CIP for 2023. And myself and Danielle Floyd, who is the Public Works Director, we are administering this group of folks for the committee who are deciding on what a list will look like to present to council. And so the vision for our steering committee is to plan the design and construction of all capital projects in a professional, open, and ethical manner, which will meet and exceed the expectations of our county agencies and citizens. We want to create and deliver capital projects that address critical county infrastructure and operational needs, making sure we keep focus and alignment with county strategic planning and policy objectives. And we are obligated to protect and serve the residents of Delaware County and the employees who work here. We also want to make sure that we are providing sponsorship for the planning, design, funding, and construction of facilities or infrastructure through guidance and meeting strategic, operational, functional, and financial goals. Now, this is a lot of verbiage, and it probably sounds kind of boring, but as a steering committee, we are taking this very seriously as our mission and our vision to make sure that we're spending county dollars responsibly and in accordance with this vision. A little bit more, this steering committee is made up from leaders from the Controller's Office, the Facilities Management Department, our Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Officer, the Executive Director's Office, our Solicitor, Information Technology, our Sustainability Office, even the courts, the Planning Department, the Budget Department, Purchasing, and Parks and Recreation. So there are individuals from each one of these departments participating in the steering committee. And we have asked each of our departments to submit a statement of need form for each of the purchases that they are requesting. And that's an electronic form that they fill out and share, and then it's collated by the Public Works Department and put into a large document that we are reviewing. The categories are facilities, parks, and open space. That's one category. Vehicle purchases, IT purchases, and then small equipment. And just wanted you to know that we do have a scoring rubric for each one of the submissions by each department for a purchase. And we are looking at them and actually ranking each request according to this criteria here. So the primary criteria includes an unsafe condition has to be corrected. And a compliance issue has to be corrected. So for example, an unsafe condition could be a roof that is in bad condition, it's about to collapse, or it's leaking. A compliance issue could be something in regards to a food service area in one of our facilities that has some health department issues. We want to make sure we correct that through a capital purchase. Also, then we have our prioritization based upon if the improvement protects an existing asset, if it advances a strategic goal, if it advances sustainability goals, and if it enhances community quality of life. So I'm sharing all of this with you because this is what our steering committee has been working on, and there will be a significant product at the end of this, which is our CIP. And just a little bit further to torture you all as much as possible, this is the actual process for our steering committee. Our capital statement of need forms were submitted by the departments. They were transferred into a spreadsheet. We are ranking them according to that rubric I just showed you with the prioritizations. And the CIP steering committee is then going to look through each one of these through a series of meetings. We just had our first meeting and we discussed facilities projects, parks, and open space projects. We have another meeting next week to discuss those again, to look at what we believe are the most appropriate based upon the prioritization scheme and our vision that I shared with you earlier. The committee will then compare the spreadsheet with available funds and develop a prioritized listing that will then be shared with the capital projects committee, which consists of 2 council members and a few other folks from the county. And eventually the executive director will receive a recommended CIP that will go to council for voting. And that's what you see on the website right now from last year. And this is what we're doing again. So any questions about this before I move on? I find it to be very significant because we're spending a tremendous amount of money on capital improvements. And so we have a process in place that we're trying to make sure everybody is aware of. Okay, Jim McLaughlin, hello.
I have just a question as to whether or not when the Office of Sustainability was established, did that come with any guidance regarding the zero waste hierarchy?
So when the Office of Sustainability was created last year, there was really, it just came in and we started creating all of this. So the sustainability plan, which is not finished yet, but I'm not sure of your specific question, Jim, I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, obviously, I'm really pleased by the steering committee that you've just outlined. And I'm just wondering if there were any external guidelines coming down from county council that would have guided clear goals. I know you're working on a sustainability program, and I get all of that. I just was wondering whether any of the zero waste hierarchy was also flowed down with the creation. But if not, I understand. I'm just curious.
Actually, no, it was not. However, with our public works director, she is attempting to create design standards for at least our facilities improvements, so that we will use recycled materials. We will recycle our construction materials, and developing sustainable practices for that, if that makes any sense. We're also developing a central purchasing sustainability plan so that we are purchasing materials with less transport, less packaging. So we are crafting these things as we develop our sustainability plan, if that makes sense.
Sure. Okay, you've answered my question. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Jim. Any other questions before I move on? Okay. So I wanted to share with the commission that our public works director and myself, we met with PICO, and I know that there are folks here who are very interested. Steve Clark, I know you're interested in this because you have an energy background. We are working with PICO through a person who is our representative to get rebates for all of the energy conservation measures that we are implementing. So this is actually a state mandated program to reduce electric energy consumption throughout the state. It promotes energy efficiencies, and we're trying to embed energy efficiencies into the mindset of our county. PICO's trying to have energy efficiencies built into the mindset of everyone. And we have to have projects in place by May of 2026, and that means relighting projects, HVAC projects. We can get rebates, and it's very detailed, line by line, what we can receive in terms of rebates for these energy conservation measures. One more thing, so we do have an energy efficiency representative who we're working with, and we are going to be including all of our capital improvement program projects as well as facilities projects in this process for applications. And so we plan to get the most out of that. And I would like to share with this group, maybe at the end of the year, how much money we actually receive from these rebates. So I would like you to know that that is something we're working on. Any questions about the PICO rebates program? Okay. Hi, David. Yes.
Yeah, hi. I was just wondering whether we have a name of a person, the EE rep.
I do.
Some of us know some people at the community has worked with PICO over the years on a number of things, and it's more a matter of curiosity than anything. But if you want to post it in the chat, that would be fine.
Yeah, I'm going to have to look that up. I should remember her name, but I don't. So after my presentation, I'll look it up and share it in the chat.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Any other questions? Okay, so there is a very significant project going on right now, and that is developing the plan for the former Don Guanella site. And that's the largest park in the county's history that was just acquired. And so we are asking everyone out there to consider being a member of this advisory committee, which will shape the way this park is designed and how it functions. So applications have to be in by July 22nd. And there is a link to the location here, but you could also go to our website once again, and you can actually look for it under the Parks and Recreations Department website. So Any questions about that? Okay, I wanted to share with you something really awesome. So as you know, Delaware County has a diversity, equity, and inclusion officer. Her name is Lauren Footman. And she has really been doing a lot of work on making sure that Delaware County government is doing what we're supposed to be doing in terms of our equity, inclusion, diversity work. And so I am a member of the pilot program, the second cohort, working with Delaware County Community College, taking a course to receive DEI certification. And so I wanted to share this with you to let you know that this is something I'm doing, and I find it extremely valuable. One other item here. So we are trying to consider the next Delaware County Sustainability Conference. The one we just had this year was so successful and interesting, and we gained a lot of momentum in our sustainability planning. I wanted you to know that we talked to the Foundation for Delaware County, and we're hoping that they will be our fund manager. They have agreed to do it. Now we're just looking at some contract items and agreement items. But that means that if we do partner with Delaware, the Foundation for Delaware County, we are maybe going to have the ability to have a sponsorship program. So we could have different organizations contribute to the conference, and maybe even our sustainability initiatives. So there's more to come on that. I want to remind everybody that you can still look on our website and watch the entire conference. Our two interns have been enjoying it. I'm sure it's like 7 hours of conference recordings, but I think they're really interesting. And all of the presentations from the speakers are also available on our website. Also a reminder that the summer concert series is in full bloom at Rose Tree Park, and these are free concerts, and they're pretty much every single night. Sue DePompio is here. She's probably the biggest advertiser for this. She has a few favorites, but please check it out. It's just a great opportunity to enjoy outdoor music. And so there's this is from last time. It shows the concert series program, and they start at 7:30 Wednesdays to Sundays. And it's a zero waste goal there. We're trying to do zero waste, and we're working with the Pennsylvania Resources Council to do that. One more item, and then I'll be done here. As you know, I brought this to the Sustainability Commission a while ago, that we are now members of PJM CCC. And that means that we are trying to influence policy as a coalition of cities and communities. There was just a task force meeting, a PJM task force meeting that we attended. And that was to help give support towards this clean attribute procurement senior task force, trying to influence the creation of centralized market for REC-like clean energies credits. And so it gets very complicated when it comes to influencing the grid. And the grid is where our energy is produced throughout the nation. And so that means trying to find ways to procure wind, solar, and non-petroleum burning sources. So just wanted you to know that we are participating as members. We're not just a member, we are participating as well. And I think that's all. Any questions? Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions for Francine? Well, I have a quick question. That diversity training, is that something you also wanted maybe commission members to take in one way or another, or?
Definitely. But I have to say that this is a pilot program, and I think that Delaware County is receiving this through a grant, or it's free. I don't know if Lauren's on this call. I think she's going to be the next one. Becca, I'm not sure. When is she scheduled to come, our DEI officer?
We have, she'll be here in August.
Awesome, thank you.
And the PICO rep will also be here in August, and her name is Anna Schugel.
Thank you, Becca. Becca, just so you know, Becca started. She's our new sustainability and resilience manager, and I can't say enough about how she has immersed herself in and is doing such a great job. So thank you, Becca. That was just a great example of how much you're involved.
Okay. Any other questions before we move on with the agenda? Okay, I'll share my screen again. Next is the zero waste update with Ruth Abbey. Is Ruth Abbey here?
I don't think she is, actually. I'm not sure what happened there, but I can tell you an update. I can share an update with you.
Okay.
There was a really interesting meeting that we had in Chester at the City Hall Community Center a few weeks ago, in which we had a speaker from Baltimore talk about a composting program that was really, really interesting. The purpose of that meeting was to provide residents of Chester with the opportunity to share feedback on where we're going with our sustainability, with our 10-year municipal waste plan. And so we did receive feedback. We shared some information about the guiding principles and the structure of the plan. And so it was a really, really good opportunity. But the speaker from Baltimore was fabulous. And I think that we will be able to share the recording on our website. Sean, did you receive the recording of that? I think there's a YouTube recording of that. Sean is probably busy right now.
Sean's popping in and out, but there was a YouTube recording of that.
Yeah, and Ms. Mayfield is here. I don't know if she's available to talk, but she's our circle leader, and she was present. And hello, you want to share?
Hi, everybody. I think that it was a very, very, very good initial start. Of course, as you go into the other communities and all of the communities, they are going to want an explanation as to what is zero waste and how do we get there. So there's a lot of there should be a very huge educational piece. Marketing, flyering, leafletting, emails, whatever mechanisms we have to use. But one of the things that I did want Christine and the group to know is that it's not a one-stop shop in Chester. You just can't send out an email or a Facebook because some of the residents are not connected. There's a connectivity issue and resource issue. So we have to be mindful as when we're trying to reach different communities, what mechanisms we have to use to reach them. People want to be educated. They want to learn. And we're willing, the group was received well. The residents had a lot of questions, and they let their position be known. But, I welcome those type of forums. I hope that there are many more, because we are a part of Delaware County. That's all I got to say, because I'm about ready for another Zoom.
Thank you so much for being here and sharing.
So
Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. Anybody else who attended that meeting that wanted to share? Melissa, or I know Jim was there. Lachlan. Anybody? I think Kearney was too. Jim, do you want to share anything about that meeting?
Well, I thought it was pretty well attended, actually, and I thought the energy behind it was really good. The presentation by the gentleman from Baltimore was really infectious, and I really do encourage folks to take a look at that. He's obviously working a fairly small program, and I asked a number of questions, and I think others did, about how it might work at a county level, something like that. So, that's good dialogue for us to learn about. But he's clearly a resource for us as we build understanding and visibility into, what might happen in terms of composting in Delaware County. It was a great event, and I appreciate, so what was that? Is that the third and final? Was that correct? Oh, you're muted.
Oh, sorry. Yes, it was the third and final for that planning process. But as Ms. Mayfield said, I think it's definitely wise for us to continue conversation as we move forward. So it's not the last, but in terms of the legal requirement for that mandated 10-year municipal waste management plan through the DEP, that was the mandated third public meeting with that group. Yeah.
Francine, can I ask a question, dude? Do we have an idea of timeline for when the first draft will be, ready for prime time?
I think at the end of the summer, we will have, so September, we should have a draft. Becca, I know we got an email from Ruth that said something about the timeline this week. I believe it is by September.
That sounds accurate.
Thank you. So
Okay,
yes, we will definitely share. And we'll have Ruth present that for sure as soon as there's a draft available to share.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions before we move on in the agenda?
I have a question about the zero waste group. Is it part of the scope to promote companies in our area that are doing really cool stuff or apps or things like that? Or is it just like refuse and garbage and recycling.
No. So the Zero Waste Associates folks, they have interacted with industry, so different alternative ways of managing waste. So they're definitely talking to different companies and organizations about that, such as Aero Aggregates. We also had a meeting with another organization this week. I can't remember the name, sorry, but I know that Zero Waste Associates is talking to a lot of industry about unique and novel, innovative ways to do this stuff.
Oh, that's cool. I mean, I put in the little chat 2 apps that I think are really cool for us normal people. One is to limit waste from supermarkets, and it's running at local giants. And this is an app you can have on your phone. Another one is for restaurants. And my wife and I have used both of these, and you can save a lot of money and on restaurant food and supermarket food. So these are pretty cool things that I think should be pushed out.
Thank you. That's helpful. And you know what? Please feel free to send emails to me with those things too.
Want me to send that to you by email?
That would be great. Yeah. I mean, if you can, I can see it here, but it would be nice if you have any other ideas. Anybody who has ideas like that, please send them to our email address, which is sustaindelco@co. Oh God. Yeah, anyway, I'll put it in the chat.
I'll send it to you.
co.delaware.pa.us. Thank you.
Those 2 could be nice pushed out through social media too, if that's you're comfortable promoting an app.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda, I guess next is public comment. Is there any public comment?
All right, I'm checking now.
Thank you.
I checked before the meeting and I didn't see anything recent. There was something from the past. Nothing from the time of the start of this meeting, but I do have an email that asks about my municipality has started the process for a multi-year contract to purchase electricity. Is there or can there be a mechanism to inform municipalities and school districts on when they might be able to participate in the power purchase agreement? Recent increases in commercial electricity costs should improve the finances for PPA, could be a big win for local governments. And so the answer is we don't have that in place at this time. We're still trying to figure out how to do a PPA with Chester, Bucks, and Montgomery counties. So the timing is not right yet. So that's an answer to that. I apologize that there's not a better answer. And here's another question. You might want to consider a meeting with the Delaware County chapter of the PA Society of Professional Engineers at one of our monthly meetings. And our current president is Albert Federico, and the website was given. So agreed, we will move on that at the Office of Sustainability. We'll check that out. And that's all I have.
Okay. So the next item on the agenda is the sustainability plan update with Becca Yurkovich.
Pull this up. Alrighty, so here we go. So as you guys know, I've been here for 3 weeks now, but I'm pretty proud of the progress we're making so far and happy to be jumping back in the progress and the process for the sustainability plan. So just a reminder, as you guys know, over the past year and a half, there were a lot of meetings for quite some time that identified the 6 focus areas as health and wellness, natural resources, transportation, energy, waste and resource management, and climate resiliency. And we also felt that it was important to go about these issues with the lenses of equity, inclusion, economic growth, governance, and education. So we were also taking this SMART approach, so specific goals that are measurable, actionable, realistic, and time-bound. This is really a plan that we were hoping would serve as a model for other communities as well, and would really progress the initiatives throughout the county, rather than, for lack of a better term, sitting on a shelf. So where we're at currently, over the past couple weeks, I have been going back through all the documentation that had been previously made by interns and Sharon J and Francine, and anyone that has touched this process. So I've been going through and trying to compile all the baseline data that we have, and the existing metrics we have for some of the identified areas for future actions. The existing initiatives that the county is already doing in sustainable practices in those 6 focus areas. I've also been reviewing sustainability plans from across the country to kind of touch base to see if we're on the same track as other communities, as well as where we can further the initiatives and be more innovative. I've also been looking at specific design and structuring of those plans just to kind of start to build that framework in my mind and throughout our department to make sure that we are working in a deliberate manner. The last thing I've been outlining is in looking at all the existing initiatives and measures is identifying potential partners as well as champions in these forms of sustainability already. I've also been looking at the goals that we had already identified in those 6 focus areas and really trying to reformat them so they fall into the SMART format. I know some of the goals right now had a couple of different ideas that were very specific and were actually more action focused. So I'm kind of dissecting those back out to make sure they're broad enough, whereas we check off actions during the implementation phase, that those larger goals can continue into future iterations of the plan as well. So moving forward in the next couple of weeks, we are going to be actively starting the subcommittees. So as you recall, we have 6 subcommittees, each focusing on those 6 topic areas. We are hoping to have 1.5-hour meetings on a bi-weekly basis. So it'll be about 12 meetings a month for our department. For participants, we encourage everyone to be on at least one. And if you are on more than one, I would just be strategic so that you're not getting burnt out. And what we're hoping to get out of these subcommittees moving forward is to really identify the metrics of how can we be measuring these goals and what actions can we be taking within the county that are within our control, or what can we influence, or what opportunities do we have to educate so we are making sure that these goals are moving forward. So the next steps moving forward, everyone should be expecting an email tomorrow of just a reminder of which subcommittees you were designated to or nominated for. And I'll also be sending out a doodle poll. I know in the past they've been a little hectic with too many options. So for my own mental sanity, the meetings will be either the 1st and 3rd Tuesdays, the 1st and 3rd Thursdays, or the corresponding 2nd and 4th. So the doodle poll will pretty much be picking what works best for you. The 1st and 3rd, the 2nd and 4th, and morning or afternoon. Just so, again, it stays consistent and we can keep the progress moving. So I'm anticipating these meetings will begin in early to mid-August. And prior to breaking out, I will be trying to host an orientation just to kind of go over for some of the subcommittee members that aren't already sitting on our Sustainability Commission, where we've come in the process so far, as well as what the expectations are in terms of time and attendance, as well as the structuring, just so people can kind of pick and choose if they do have to miss meetings, which ones make the most sense. So if all goes according to plan, the subcommittees will run through February of 2023, addressing specific goals each month. So the approach that I'll be taking, or that each of these groups will be taking, is you'll be addressing one goal per month. The first meeting will be looking at specific metrics and targets, And then the second meeting of the month would be defining the specific actions. That way, if people can't make every single meeting, they know from the very beginning which topics are going to be addressed each month, so they can be strategic about attendance and their expertise. So finally, if we stay on schedule, we're anticipating that the plan will be completed in summer of 2023, which is very exciting. So at this point, does anybody have questions about the subcommittees and the plan and how we're moving forward?
I would just like to note the change in the timeline. So we were hoping for September of this year, but it's not going to happen. Becca being here now allows us to have the ability to do this work. And so I'm just grateful that she has organized it in such a way that this is accomplishable by the timeline she has created there. And I totally agree with it. Steve, you have a question, I think?
Oh, I was just going to ask, all these meetings have to be during work hours? It's going to really certainly limit what I can contribute.
Right. Unfortunately, we are trying to keep them to work hours because, again, this is something that I'm going to have to be facilitating. So with the addition of our Sustainability Commission meetings, that would be 13 nights a month that I would be doing night as well as day work. So unfortunately, it is something that we're trying to adhere to. But again, hopefully what the intention is because we're going to have it in a strict structure of we are talking about this goal in this month, this meeting is for targets, and this meeting is for metrics. People that, like you and others that can't always get away during the day can be strategic about moving their schedule for the ones that they have their expertise specifically in.
Are there any other questions? Rebecca? Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Becca. I'm so excited. Thank you. We're so excited that you're in this role. So a lot to look forward to. So I'll share my screen again here. Oh, wait a second. Oh, wait. I think I missed my agenda here. Here we are. Okay. Next is Sustainability Commission membership status with Francine.
So there's not much to share except that there is an advertisement. I'm going to share my screen quickly to show you what I'm talking about. Okay. So as you know, we have 4 openings. And so these are the members whose terms are expiring, or in the case of Becca, she has now changed her role. She is now not a business manager for Bethel. She is now working for the county. So her position is open as well. And just the bylaw language we shared last time, I'm just repeating it. This just shows a little bit about how the county executive director appoints the members. And this is about the format of how we have 2 chairpersons, a vice chairperson. And so that is something I wanted to share. But most importantly, our website has the location for which you can apply to be a member of the Sustainability Commission. And so if you go to that website here, delcopa.gov, if you go to the delcopa.gov and just go to the county clerk's website, there is a board and commission vacancy tab. That's where you'll find this particular item. All of the applications are due by August 12th. And so please follow that link and you can apply to be a member of the Sustainability Commission. And that's it. That's my update.
Francine, quick question.
Yes.
When you apply, you have to select which position you would represent.
I believe so. Let me test it out. Let's test that out. Has anybody looked at that? That's a good question. I'll go there now. I'm actually going to the Delco website. I'm going to the A to Z under county clerk. And I'm looking at the sidebar that is board vacancies. And I can see down here that the Delaware County Sustainability Commission, clicking on it now. And so actually it has a letter, it posts a letter that shares information about the board opening, description of the commission. They're calling it a board, but it's a commission. And it just shares what openings are available. And then it has that you should send an email with your resume and letter of interest to the county clerk at the specific email address there. And you're supposed to indicate one or more of the categories that are listed. So the categories of one person should represent with expertise and experience in the field of energy, one representative of the general public, one municipal manager or other staff member, and one municipal environmental advisory committee member. So I do want to share that there are 3 members of the commission that are interested in returning. And so the one position that is open will be the general public position because we are reallocating. Jacqueline, do you want to share how that's working? Because it's kind of complicated and weird. Or Becca, one of you.
So I can do it, sure. So the open positions currently are Carol, who was an EAC representative, Jacqueline, who was a general member of the public, and then my position I know was also in this mix, which was a municipal representative. We recognize that it's going to be tough to find another municipal representative. So what the plan moving forward was going to be is Carol has since accepted a position on Lansdowne Borough Council. So she would be applying to my old spot. Jacqueline, who also serves on an EAC, would be applying to Carol's old spot. And that would leave us with just a general member of the public spot open. So that way that we can engage the larger public and hopefully get fill the position a little bit easier as well.
That was so well said, Becca. Thank you. I could not have done that.
Thank you.
Thank you. So that's the update.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions about that before we move on to the next item on the agenda? Okay. All right, I will share my screen again. Next item on the agenda is the Delaware County Transportation Management Association. Tracy.
Yes, thank you. Will I be able to share my screen?
Yes, you should be able to.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, just a little PennDOT humor there. I'll start off with a joke, and I don't know if anyone knows how PennDOT describes the 4 seasons in Pennsylvania. It's called construction, 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 and winter. So, good evening, everyone. Thank you for inviting me. I'm really happy to be here. And I want to thank Francine for opening some time up to me because I don't think a lot of people know who we are, the Delaware County Transportation Management Association. We are a private nonprofit. We are 501c3. And in a nutshell, there's a big statement from PennDOT about what we're supposed to be doing, and it's about a paragraph. But we basically exist to promote and provide alternative modes of travel to the single occupancy vehicle. We don't want people getting in their cars and driving places alone. So most of our projects for this year and previous, the projects were 80% federally funded, and those were administered via PennDOT. And they do come with a 20% local match. And as the awardee, it's up to us, the DCTMA, to come up with or earn those local matching funds in order to further the work for PennDOT and the DVRPC. And previously, our job, so to speak, was on transportation demand management, education, and promotion. So we would hold informational events, we would have webinars, we operate a website, and we update that with alerts. We publish social media, etc. But all of these things basically to Becca's point, we're not really measurable. How can you measure how many people? I mean, like, yeah, we have likes, we have clicks, but you can't really measure the impact that it's making in the county. Besides the fact that all of these work programs that came in through PennDOT were CMAQ funded. And if anybody's familiar with congestion mitigation, air quality funding, it's heavily restricted. There are only certain things that you can do with CMAQ funding. And that left us with a lot of activities that we could no longer perform or work that we couldn't do. So what happened in fiscal year 23 right now and beyond is, instead of PennDOT administering our transportation demand management projects, the DVRPC is now going to be administering tangible projects that each Transportation Management Association can perform within their own county. And I will tell you that each county in the Philadelphia area in the Southeast has at least one TMA. Philadelphia has 3, Montgomery County has 2, and Bucks, Delaware, and Chester, we each have 1 TMA. And all of us had projected or applied for grant funding from the DVRPC for multiple work programs. And these are still coming in that are 80% federally funded. And so we are still on the hook for our 20% local match. But these new programs are now funded through surface transportation block grants, and they come with a lot more flexibility. So some of the goals that we have or that we're working on in conjunction with county planning and the transportation department are very achievable. And we're very excited to kind of give some information and strategies down at the very local, micro local level. And I also want to mention to this committee that DCTMA is the Delaware County administrator of the PennDOT Community Traffic Safety Project. That is something that is separate and distinct from the transportation management projects we do, but that's something else that we administer on behalf of the county. So prior to 2022 and 2021, we were still somewhat, COVID inhibited. And the only thing that we could really do is promote the Mobility Alternatives Program, or what we know as MAP. And those, again, are things that keep people out of their cars. Can you telework or telecommute? Are companies taking advantage of flex scheduling or hybrid scheduling? There is a share a ride component that actually coordinates carpools depending on where you live, and that software is available through DCTMA and also the DVRPC. We also promoted the Commute with Enterprise van pools, again, when able to. And we also work with the DVRPC and Eden Red commuter benefits to promote pre-tax commuter benefits. I actually believe that that's something that the county is looking into. I know I had an outreach from Laura regarding that. And also we are a champion and administrator of the Septic Key program. So all of our activities in 2021 were virtual. Our transportation webinar in September was with the Chester Economic Development. We had our Access to Jobs Expo. And in January, we got a firsthand look at the bipartisan infrastructure bill and how it affects Pennsylvania from Deputy Secretary of PennDOT, Secretary Jenny Lewis. She presented to our business advance. But in 2022, we were able to open up a little bit, and we started with our municipalities conference and trade show. And every year, DCTMA provides municipal education to municipalities, public works, school districts, engineers, on pertinent topics relating to transportation and mobility at the local level. And we were very fortunate this year to have our keynote speaker was Secretary Larry Shiflett, Secretary for Planning for PennDOT. And we also had presentations from PICO and from the Air Quality Partnership regarding the electric vehicle infrastructure, again, that's being pushed down from the state, pushed down to PennDOT, And this is going out to county levels, to municipal levels. It's a very fast moving program. So that was another thing that we were able to cover for the municipalities at that conference. And then we had, it's going to be hard to top this. We had a bike to work event this year. We actually, you can see on your screen on the far left, that is a SEPTA bus driver instructing on bike racks and how to attach your bike to the front of the SEPTA bus. We posted the instructional video on TikTok. It now has 3 million views. I'm not kidding you. It has been shared with bus and MTA transportation in Los Angeles, Chicago, Austin, Texas, and several other places. We're just astounded at how this is taking off. In the middle, you'll see our mock-up of the protected bike lane. That's current legislation that is in the Senate Transportation Committee in Harrisburg that is working to amend current PennDOT codes that restrict the distance that parked cars must be from curbing. And in order to amend that and allow construction of bike lanes that look like this, they have to amend the transportation code. And then on the far right, you can see some of our representatives that were able to come to Bike to Work, Councilwoman Reuter and Councilwoman Schaefer, as well as our Director of Planning, Interim Director of Planning, Tom Schaefer. And we had a press conference that featured Senator Carney because he's on the Senate Transportation Committee, and also PennDOT District 6 Safety Coordinator gave a lot of information on our Bike to Work and biking initiatives throughout the county. So what comes next for us? Well, you heard it here first. I'm going to give you all a save the date. September 28th at noon, DCTMA will be hosting a webinar with the PennDOT district engineer and the Alfred Benesch engineer that is working on the Blue Route project. 3 lanes on the Blue Route, construction on McDade Boulevard exit, and also the extension of the Route 1 entrance ramp to Route 476. So there's a lot of construction coming up on the Blue Route. So stay tuned September 28th at noon to find out more information. Also coming up this fall, Jacobs Engineering is the engineer of record for the Route 352, Route 1, and 452 loop that is going to go in where the Cloverleaf is now by Riddle Hospital and the old Granite Run Mall. I am told that the projection for that project is going to be, it's a 5-year project, and outreach is going to start this fall. So any of your municipal and or business leaders that may be affected by that project will be contacted in September, I think. But for us, now that the DVRPC is administering our projects instead of PennDOT, we have the opportunity to do a heck of a lot more in terms of education that really makes a difference. And that's what we're really excited about. We are going to continue our outreach events on mobility alternative programs and communications, transportation fairs, where we actually go on site to either businesses. A lot of times they're done at community centers or libraries, where we bring transit information, and people who are at that business or employees from anywhere basically can come and find out about how to take transit, what's the closest stop. When the 101, 102 trolley is not working and there's bus boarding, where do I go? We have all of that information there. We also work as a state representative office resource. We work with many of the state rep offices to help them answer transportation questions for their constituents, and they refer a lot of their folks to us as well. Moving forward, one of the programs that we're going to be doing or starting this year is a TDM ordinance education and tracking program. And this is going back to our municipalities conference, kind of.
Hi, can you help me with the, these are the ones I want to get, but if you can help me.
Sorry. So what that will do is that will allow municipalities to receive education from PennDOT and the DVRPC on how to legislate TDM strategies locally. And that's pretty significant because all of your municipalities don't have to pay to go to this because it's grant funded. And what we really want to do is we want to take the lead from some of the other communities that have already put TDM ordinances in place for future development and open our municipalities up to some of those strategies and information and actually have them legislate them on a local level. And the second program under travel options that we're doing is a senior citizen transit travel education seminar. And we will be holding these either in person or via webinar. And senior groups can request a training session on how to use, map, SEPTA, and the difference between what is SEPTA, CCT, and what is community transit. What is the difference between medical assistance ride and a basic shared ride? So all of those topics will be gone over in senior citizen travel education. And we will also be issuing SEPTA ride-free key cards at these seminars as well. The other program that we're doing in Delaware County is a Commute 95 program. I don't know if anybody hasn't driven on I-95 in the past 3 years that it's been under construction, but it's going to be under construction for me a couple of more years. So one of the things that we do is we update our website weekly with the individual locations and timing of I-95 lane restrictions in Delaware County. Basically just telling people, go before, go after, don't get stuck in traffic, or find a friend and stay off of I-95. Go to the shore together. All of those types of strategies. Another program that we're doing this year, or, oh, I'm sorry, I'll just say, in 2024, is that we were just granted a TCDI grant from the DVRPC that will be studying and examining multimodal transportation all along Chester Pike on Route 13, from Ridley Park all the way down through Sharon Hill. And this was a multi-municipal application that will actually take a very aged roadway and try to remove it from vehicle dependency by incorporating several types of multimodal strategies around Chester Pike. So we have a lot of things going on this year. Very, very busy. But I'd love the opportunity to keep you guys informed on everything that's going on date-wise as soon as we know. But like I said, save that date for September 28th, learn all about the Blue Route. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you so much for sharing all that information.
I know it's a lot of information. So.
It's unbelievable. There's a lot of information. So we would like for you to come back again and hopefully share updates with us because it seems like there's a lot of opportunity there.
Absolutely. And anybody who has any questions, I'm not familiar with where y'all live, but we're going to be also visiting municipal planning commissions to promote and make them aware of the education TDM legislation conference, and to kind of do some fact finding, if you will, on what some of the more common pain points are. So I just put it out to you, wherever you live, if there are specific pain points in transportation that, you know, are causing air quality problems or what have you, you know, don't be shy. Just turn them in.
Thank you, Tracy. And are there any other questions for Tracy? Okay. All right. Thank you. We'll continue on with the agenda. Next is Johns Hopkins Air Monitoring Project.
Dr. DiCarlo is with us. Hopefully he's still here. It's been a while. Yep. Well, thank you, sir. Thank you for being here with us.
No problem. So hello, everybody. I am no longer in the Philadelphia area. I was actually for about 10 years, and now I'm in Baltimore. But I'm here to talk a little bit about a project that we did looking at air toxics and air pollution in the Chester, Trainer, Marcus Hook area, especially around the industrial corridor near the Delaware. So it fits in a little bit with some of the sustainability goals, I think, in terms of kind of healthy environment, reduction in the use of fossil fuels. But this will be a brief kind of overview of some of the work that we did, and it's ongoing. We have additional results that we're trying to plug through. But the team here, me and several other faculty at Hopkins, and then postdocs and graduate students have been doing the lion's share of the actual work. So kind of linking all this together, we think a lot about climate issues and long-term climate impacts from use of fossil fuels. But in addition to that, the use of fossil fuels and the production of fossil fuels leads to unhealthy conditions and unsustainable conditions in areas around those facilities. When we combat climate, we typically just talk about reducing greenhouse gas emissions, but we don't always think about that pollution aspect and the effect it has on fence line or nearby communities to those facilities. And so that was kind of the focus for our study, is understanding what are the air pollutants that are there that can be causing a harm, especially to the people who live right next to the facilities. So we had a bunch of different instrumentation to make really detailed measurements of what's in the air. And we collaborated with Scott Van Bremer at Widener University and had a fixed site, which you can see in this kind of upper left corner, where we had, about $1 million worth of instrumentation, making measurements for the month of September in 2022. We contracted with a company, Aerodyne Research, out of just outside Boston, and they had their mobile laboratory, which was basically a laboratory on wheels that could make measurements while driving around. And that drove around during that month of September and made measurements all over the Chester, Marcus Hook, and Trainer areas, and a little bit crossing the river into New Jersey to look at some of the other background areas. We also deployed low-cost particulate matter sensors with several community members in the area as well. And that research is ongoing. And the ultimate goal is taking all of these measurements that we're doing and understand what that means in terms of cumulative risk. So a lot of the pollutants that we're measuring for are known carcinogens, so cancer-causing agents, and they don't always exist by themselves. They often exist with other chemicals as well. And so the idea is, if you start to sum up all of those impacts, what does that mean for community health and neighborhood health at that level? And so that's ultimately one of the outputs that we want to get out of this study. We're not quite there yet. We have a lot of work to do on that risk side, but the measurement piece is in pretty good shape. You guys are probably all familiar with the area pretty well. What we ended up doing was creating in terms of preparation for the study, creating an interactive Google map where we could look at where the different facilities are and plan driving routes around so that we could get in the areas where the facilities that we're interested in their emissions were located. The stars that you see on this figure are also where we place low-cost sensors, and then the Widener site was somewhat removed from the more heavily industrialized area around the riverfront. And we use that as kind of what is the typical kind of background for the Chester area. And then how much does that change when we get closer to the industrial parts of the waterfront? We can use tools that already exist. So EPA and the Center for Disease Control, this is a CDC Social Vulnerability Index, looks at issues in communities and kind of ranks them nationally for susceptibility to various environmental harms. So where is there a high prevalence of lead paint or diesel particulate matter? Air toxics, which is something that we were interested in. Air toxic respiratory risk is something that we're interested in. The traffic emissions, we just heard about the congestion issues, and you can see how kind of the I-95 corridor is lit up in this kind of panel E. Water and legacy pollution sites are highlighted here too. So this is a map of kind of the study area and what popped up in looking at the CDC's Social Vulnerability Index. So where are people more vulnerable to air pollution and its impacts? So kind of jumping into the measurements, because I don't have a huge amount of time, and I probably don't want to bore you and take away from the sustainability parts of the meeting. But we made measurements of things like metals in particulate matter, and we know things like lead are not good for us. We've done a very good job historically in the US cleaning up lead. Removing it from gasoline was a huge first step, and then we no longer use lead paint, but it's still an issue. And so what we did was we made measurements, looked at that, and compared that to estimates from EPA tools, the National Ambient Air Toxics, and the Air Toxic Screening Assessment is the newer version, and looked at the concentration we measured of lead and compared that to what was coming out in those estimate tools. And we found higher levels than what were being estimated. In addition, the size of the particles matters, how deeply they can penetrate into your lungs, and smaller particles tend to get more deeply into your lungs. Larger particles will get trapped in kind of your nose and your throat. So it's a different exposure. And the lead was tended to be concentrated in those smaller particles. So the things that are a little bit more dangerous to breathe because they can get more into your lung where the blood is replenished, and you can get higher exposures that way. So we found things like lead and vanadium a little bit higher than would be estimated, and that means more risk for the community members in that area. Another air toxic that we're concerned about is formaldehyde. Formaldehyde is a known carcinogen. It has a few other impacts, respiratory irritation, and some neurological impacts as well. The 8-hour exposure limit based on workplace safety is this red dashed line here. The black line that you see here is actually measurements we made at Widener. So those measurements we at Widener, we never quite got to that level except for this one time towards the end of the project. But when we were driving around in the mobile lab that you saw with Aerodyne, we very frequently exceeded that level of about 7 parts per billion, which is the health relevant level, and sometimes got up, into the 30 and almost 90 parts per billion. So much higher than that level. And so that green is when we actually go out into the communities around these facilities and drive around. And so you can see that there's a difference in exposure and a difference in risk based on where you live from these measurements. Again, the measured values that we have, the Widener site is this red line. And you can see it's higher than the range estimated by the National Ambient Air Toxics, which is this kind of gray box. And then this envelope of points out here, this is measurements from the mobile lab. And what we see is that those often exceed quite a bit, or I'm sorry, those are actually the fixed site measurements. The mobile measurements actually go even higher. But you can see that the points typically go well above that range estimated by the National Ambient Air Toxics, which means that we're underestimating people's exposure to these toxic compounds that can cause cancer. Again, this is a picture of the mobile lab one evening in September of last year, sitting outside the Monroe Energy Refinery. The nice thing about the mobile measurements is it can drive around and find plumes and then track those plumes as they get blown with the wind. So we can map out neighborhoods and look at differences across a neighborhood in terms of air pollutant concentrations. We had set up a system where residents were able to text us if they smelled something, and we could try to be responsive. We only got, I think, one call during the month of September. We didn't have flyers up or anything. So I think we probably would have had way too many calls if we over advertised, but we did respond to that call and did find a plume that we could track where it was coming from. And the nice thing about being mobile is you can find out where those highest concentrations are by driving around and actually actively looking for it and getting real-time feedback as you drive. And so this was a really nice tool to have for this project. And so one thing we're able to do with that is start to map out hotspots or areas where we see the highest concentrations of various plumes. And this green box over here is the concentration of formaldehyde. And what you see is the Chester area and the waterfront in particular, this kind of area that highlights in red is right around the Evonik and PQ facilities. And so these were the highest concentrations, and we very typically saw this. This is the average of all of the drives, and we did, I think, 40 or 50 hours of driving, or no, I'm sorry, way more than that, during the month of September. We typically drove about 8 hours a day, for about 20 days. So that would have been 160 hours of driving. And then the lowest concentrations we actually did see over in kind of the Marcus Hook area. Although down around the tank farms and some of the other facilities, the petrochemical facilities down here, we saw higher levels as well. But that's around those tank farms in the Marcus Hook area is when we did often see the highest concentrations of benzene, which is another carcinogen. And the elementary school in Marcus Hook is actually in this area too. So this was a rather unfortunate finding. Benzene is not something you want to be breathing on a regular basis. And it's not surprise, it's in your gasoline. And so being around a refinery and the tank farms that hold gasoline and other fuels is not a surprise to see those levels of benzene. But it's something that certainly we want to try to minimize, especially for the people who live in this particular area. And so translating that concentration into risk, we can use something called a hazard quotient. The hazard quotient is a way to take the concentration of benzene and divide it by a known level that causes health impacts. And so when you hit the value of 1 or any red color in this figure, it means that you've hit a level that is consistent with known health impacts of exposure. And so again, residences and elementary schools are in this red circle where we see several of these 50 meter by 50 meter pixels lighting up and showing higher concentrations of benzene than the California's EPA relative exposure limit, which is what we're using here to develop this hazard quotient. So certainly something that's not great for people who are either living or working or going to school in this region. So just to kind of sum things up from what we've seen so far, the modeled values using EPA tools, which rely on numbers typically from industry, are generally lower for many of the species that we're interested in, hazardous air pollutants, known carcinogens, metal species, things like that. We see consistent areas that are higher in concentration, and we don't see them consistently reported in various databases, although we've now been talking with DEP and working on some of the issues around this formaldehyde plume that we observed. So that's an ongoing work and ongoing dialogue with Department of Environmental Protection in Pennsylvania. I think it's really important to be able to figure out how to take this data, which we can generate relatively quickly, and think about it in risk frameworks for community exposures in a way that gets feedback and discussions going faster than what's typically done under a regulatory framework, which can take years. And so in order to kind of short circuit that process, we're coming up with ways to try to understand the risk on a faster timescale to start to address these challenges earlier. We're continuing to look at the kind of cumulative risk. So I just talked about 2 main pollutants here. We measured about 50 to 60, and thinking about how all of those work together in a way that can harm residents' health. And then we are continuing, this is one meeting, and we've had several others to share these findings with community groups and with regulatory agencies to better get these findings out and outside of just the kind of general scientific community that often we keep our results limited to. So the whole point of this project is to build a science-based framework that leads to community discussions and figuring out how to improve the situation for everyone. So I'm happy to answer any questions if people have questions.
There's a question in the chat. Has the elementary school been notified and any response?
We have not directly contacted the elementary school. We've worked mostly with community groups and local government, but we haven't reached out to specific residents who live in kind of those hotspot areas or the elementary school. But it's certainly something that probably should be done. I don't know if we're the right party to do that, but I think we can certainly be involved in any discussion that happens.
So did you? Oh, go ahead, Scott. And then there's another question in the chat after that.
Did you identify the sources of the air pollution? I mean, the big debate that goes on that Chester waterfront is what's the highest polluter, you know, and some people say it's Covanta, some people say it's I-95, and that if we get rid of Covanta, it's not a big deal. So like, you've identified pollution. Have you identified the cause of the pollution?
Yeah, so I think the chemical signatures are different for all of those different pollution sources. And so with the kind of multi-pollutant work that we're doing, it's actually relatively straightforward. If you're just looking at total particulate matter mass, pretty much every pollutant, every source generates that. But when you start to break it down into the metals in the particulate matter or the other components of the particulate matter, it becomes easier to say this is from traffic or this is from industry. And so that's part of the ongoing work as well in the source apportionment. And I think the other piece to that is a facility like Covanta has a big stack. It has a really big stack. So the emissions at Covanta happen pretty high up in the atmosphere. And that's by design. That reduces the impact at the ground. By the time that pollution gets back to the ground, it's diluted pretty significantly. You wouldn't want the combustion or the incineration of trash to be released at ground level. What that also means is depending on which way the wind is blowing, different areas are going to be impacted by that at different times. Contrasting that with other industrial facilities, which have what we call fugitive emissions or emissions that aren't coming out of a stack, but happening at ground level, you can have higher exposures for the same amount of pollution coming out because they're being emitted at the level that people are breathing. And so that's another consideration. It's not just how much is coming out, but where is it coming out and how is that impacting the air that people are breathing? Traffic, again, we don't have huge stacks on the back of a vehicle. They come out at the tailpipe level. So those are also emissions at ground level where people are breathing. And so that's another reason why traffic emissions have been such a focus for a long time, for decades, in terms of reducing those emissions to minimize impact to health.
And we have another question in the chat. To what extent does your team include staff that can facilitate the community outreach work that you are referencing?
I mean, we are building our team out to have more expertise in that. We're trying to increase the amount of funding we're getting from our funder to do that better. But we have, we have people who have, including myself, who have worked a lot in trying to translate scientific results to the community level. And it's something that is important in a place that we do want to grow this project. So we have people, we'd like to expand that, I guess is the answer to the question. And yes, Covanta definitely releases particulate matter, dioxins. One of the concerns that we have is the metal emissions from trash incineration as well. It's one of the more unique things I think about burning waste and what can come out. People throw batteries away even though they're not supposed to, and you incinerate those, it's a really bad situation.
I have a question. Is there any epidemiological data regarding the health effects that are experienced in the community? Do we know anything about cancer clusters or asthma rates or different issues in the community there, that not necessarily looking at the contaminants or the environmental health exposure, but I'm just wondering if there is any data about that?
Yes and yes. There is data. We don't have that right now. One of the issues and one of the things we're running up against, and these are in our internal discussions, is that that's often collected at a pretty coarse spatial resolution. At best, you're at census tract level, and we're finding a lot of the gradients in air pollution are actually much smaller than that. And so when you start to dilute a population into the census tract area, we do expect to see higher levels, but the signal of the exposure is not as well provided in the resolution of these epidemiological databases. And so it's something where we're kind of running up against and trying to figure out a workaround as best we can, because you also have to maintain privacy. And the smaller spatial area you go, the more, if you have one case of cancer in a very small area, people know who that might be. And so you don't have any kind of privacy at that level.
There are some comments in the chat. Covanta releases particulate matter. And this is a start. You can type in a location. It's ejscreen.epa.gov. The Pennsylvania Department of Health is currently working on health maps, and then and some asthma data, maybe not at the best resolution, is available through EJ Screen.
Yep, we've been definitely mining that, and EJ Screen was actually just updated this last year. And we were hoping it would improve, but we didn't see very much in the way of improvements in especially the modeled concentrations of air pollutants in the area. So again, I don't blame EPA and their tools. They're using the best available data that they have, and a lot of it again comes from industry reporting. So it's often not measured, and I think that's one of the gaps that we're trying to fill is actually make measurements on the ground to ground truth the information going into these databases.
Well, thank you, Peter. Does anyone have any other questions for Peter?
I do want to say thank you so much for spending time with us this evening. We really appreciate you sharing your information with us.
Who initiated this study and who funded it?
The Bloomberg Philanthropies funded our participation in the study, and then we planned it all out and brought in the collaborators. I have a lot of contacts in the Pennsylvania area due to my history in Philadelphia, and use those to help bring some other groups into this. Originally, we were going to do work in Louisiana, but COVID numbers were very high when we were planning the study down there. And so we decided for the team safety to not go down there. And then Hurricane Ida hit down there too, which made it even more difficult. So we pivoted to make measurements in this area, specifically focused on petrochemical refining.
And Melissa said, this work is so necessary, Peter, and thank you. So thank you.
I have one more question. Peter,
Sure.
what do you think of these citizen reporting devices like Purple Air or Plume? If people want to, like I live across from a high school where there's diesel buses idling all the time to possibly highlight like very local risks in communities.
I mean, I think those are great tools. I think they are fantastic for building awareness and getting people involved and thinking about these things. One of the things that I love about my job is I get to measure things that we can't necessarily see. Sometimes we can smell them, sometimes we can taste them, but quantifying that is something that I love. So I just love the concept of that. In terms of their accuracy, unfortunately, I don't think they're as accurate as we wish they were. Every day things are improving. So I think they're fantastic tools, and I think they can help shine a light on places like what you're mentioning, truck or buses idling. That should really never happen. There should be laws to prevent idling, especially in elementary schools, because those are really susceptible developing lungs. So yeah, I would say that would be a great first step, is if you could show that that's leading to pretty high concentrations and have photos and concentrations that kind of trace that out. You could encourage the school to kind of enact a no idling policy for the buses, which would probably be protective of little developing lungs.
Okay, any other questions for Peter? Okay, thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
We'll go on to the next item on the agenda. Looks like review action items from the last meeting. So let me see, I'll go to the meeting minutes from our last meeting. See if this was from our last meeting. Yeah. Action items. Proceed with next steps for committee members with expiring terms. You already talked about that. Solar array update. I guess that could be an action item for next meeting. And presenting the EV location map. I don't believe we did that today either, but we can do it at our next meeting.
Yes, the GIS team is scheduled for the August meeting, Becca, am I right? Pretty sure.
Okay, all right. Go back to the agenda. Okay, new business. Is there any new business that anyone would like to bring up today?
Yeah, I'd like to, I'd just like to ask a question, actually. There was a very interesting article sometime in the past couple of days in the New York Times about a town outside of Austin that is, repurposing some old industrial property in support of the green economy. And certainly we have lots of old industrial property around Delaware County. And it would be really interesting at some point to find out what, if anything, is going on at the county level with efforts to redevelop some of that and to encourage. This is the whole idea of getting green industry into the county, and to what degree can we, marry that purpose of the green industry with the redevelopment of the old property, and how can we expedite that?
Laura, did you?
Right. So under our office, we have the redevelopment authority. And David, yes, while there was plenty of industrial space that had been sitting vacant for years, the most iconic, of course, being the FMC site in Marcus Hook. Right now, the most hot commercial market that we have is industrial space within Delaware County. And we're not alone. It's not just Delaware County. It's actually the entire region and the entire state for that matter. So industrial space at the moment is at a premium. That said, beginning at the start of 2022, our redevelopment authority had a very aggressive agenda to implement tools that had not existed in Delaware County prior. We currently have an Act 135 conservatorship pilot program happening. We literally did file our first conservatorship request with the Court of Common Pleas this week. And we are looking at 3 additional houses. Now, of course, that's houses, it's not green space, but we also launched a land bank task force this week as well, with the goal of establishing a land bank in Delaware County before the end of the year. I'm actually going to say Q1 2023, just to be able to coincide with some of the judicial sales that will happen early next spring. In addition to which, we are working with Delaware County Planning Departments and Stauffer, the lead environmental planner, for a November submission to the EPA for a brownfields assessment and RLF program.
David, do you have any other follow-up question at all, or?
No, that's, just sort of trying to get a feel for what's going on, because there is so much to be done and so much opportunity. And yet, we all know that there are bottlenecks to everything. And, I see a lot of the value, where we can add value is in identifying the bottlenecks and helping to clear them. So that was very, very useful. Thank you very much, Laura.
And thanks, Laura, and thank you for your question, David. Would anyone else like to bring up any new business? No? Okay. We'll go back to the agenda. Set the action items for our next meeting. So some of the action items include these two from our last meeting. Did you have any written down, Francine? I didn't really have any others written down from today.
I think continuing to collaborate with Circle and making sure we have more community outreach and engagement regarding the 10-year municipal waste management plan or our zero waste plan, continuing with that. Also having DCTA come back to share more information about updates with that information that was shared tonight.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I think that was it. Any public comment?
I do want to note that in the chat there is some more information. Kearney, do you want to share what you're saying here, just so I don't have to try and describe it?
Yes, I'm sorry. So I sit on the Pennsylvania Department of Health, different committees for a COVID response team. And right now it's the HEAT, which is the Health Equity Action Team. And they are currently working on issues in Pennsylvania throughout the state and then broken down in regions. So right now we're in SEPA. And what I shared in the link is, I think you had asked about that, Francine, some epidemiology information.
Yes.
And I shared a slide or a presentation that was shown that can lead you to a person that you can get in contact with that can lead to information about the epidemiology work that you were speaking of.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any other items of, well, new business, or is there any public comment?
Let me check again the email. My apologies. Should be all over there. Just Steve, he did get back to us again regarding what we were talking about, possibly pushing through the social media zero waste plan. Steve, do you want to just say what you emailed?
Oh, no, I just sent the links to those two apps. And it's for supermarkets, and I just think it's fantastic that Giant is getting engaged in reducing food waste. So that's all I just sent back to you.
That's helpful. And Becca and I are working on the sustainability plan, and we'll bring this to the appropriate subcommittee as an action. So I think that's great. Thank you for sharing that.
I'll go back to sharing my screen. So actually, we're ready to adjourn. It's 20 minutes early, but unless there isn't something else that someone wants to share, we're ready to adjourn. So who would like to make a motion to adjourn today's meeting?
I move we adjourn.
Okay, do I have who seconded? Oh, okay, thank you. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, so moved. Your meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy your summer. See you next month.